Ta-da! I'm already hot in this sweater.
Yeah, I wore a sweater too because I was hot. I was cold, and then by the time I got up here, I was like, I'm hot.
Hello, and welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Becky and Lizzy edition. Had to think about it because we missed a day of filming.
Yes, the bud is still on sale. I am still working on the blanket. We'll see how far I get. Two things before we start the Dear Becky and Lizzy. I finished my hat, so I had to wear it to show it off. This is another reason I'm hot. This brioche double-stranded fingering is with this much left over. Super hot. My head is sweating. So, but isn't it pretty?
It's so cute.
It's so pretty. Okay, second thing. Oh, by the way, hi. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in sunny, a little chilly, but probably hopefully warming up Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there.
Just nah.
Nah.
You always never mind. Okay. So da-da. And then I wore this guy home. This is my Lara pullover. Remember this one? Because I brought in my blocked Elowen yesterday, but I haven't worn it yet. I'm going to try it on in front of y'all right now. How exciting is this? To see how it's different. Or better, worse, or no change from it being pre-blocked. So, it feels a little softer. It was already soft. Like, some of the extra squishiness of ribbing is no longer there, which is okay. Because the ribbing kind of made it be, like, super tight. So, I don't know if, it looks, I don't know if it's got a little more drape to it. I feel like, look at that, a little more shimmy, a little more drape.
It's not as stiff.
It's not as stiff as when it was first knit. I tried to not necessarily widen it too much. I didn't pull on it and pin it. I just laid it out and I tugged and I because it didn't look like the bottom was drying straight, so I tugged a little. I tried to get a little more length out of the torso without getting too much more length out of the sleeves because they were already, relaxed a little bit. So we're going to see. It took more than a day to dry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the shoulder, the sleeve separation line is a little lower, almost.
Just a little, but I don't think it's bad.
No, I think that's actually really good. Yeah. And there's still some puckering in the sleeves from the ribbing, but it doesn't feel like the sleeves felt like super, like I can still see where things under my sleeves are making little bulges, but it doesn't quite feel as bad as before. And like I said, the whole thing feels a little softer and a little less tight on me, which the tightness was okay, right? People said I looked really good in the sweater. One of the things, as I yank up my pants, don't mind me, one of the things that annoyed me a little bit before I blocked it was the ribbing, like, it doesn't look like there's actual cuff and hem ribbing on this, but I went down like a needle size, and I felt like it was flaring and curling up, and I won't know if that's still going to happen after blocking until I sit in it a little bit, because I think it was when I sat, then it kind of did this a little, and I think this is hanging better. It was riding up, and I was seeing just like the middle of my shirt, and I was really annoyed by that. That could still happen. I've only just put this on, right? But
it looks like the drape on it is nicer because the ribbing is kind of opened up a little bit.
Yeah, it's not as puckery, which is part of what ribbing is supposed to do, is be a little puckery. But yeah, like this feels a little bigger in here, and I wasn't trying to pull it bigger or anything. But that's comfy.
I think just relaxing that ribbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it didn't need to be blocked, this sweater that I'm wearing, but I think blocking might have helped it. It's not showing my silhouette as nicely as it was before, I will say. Like, it's a little drapier. Like I said, it has more drape to it. But sometimes that's a good thing. So, you can tell me what you think. If you have negative things to say, keep them to yourself. But it's not like I'm trying to push it only towards oh, it looks great, it's fantastic. I mean, constructive criticism is okay, but constructive rather than just like, that looks like poop now. I don't think it looks like poop, but it might look different than before.
It looks different, but and it's like when you block garter, it kind of relaxes and smooths out a little bit.
Softens.
Yeah.
Sometimes and sometimes you don't want that with garter, right? Sometimes you might like it to just stay extra springy, stretchy. And this, if it had stayed extra springy, stretchy, might have been okay too. But let's be honest, if you're going to wash something, it may change how it behaves and how it feels. So if you don't block it, like, blocking is just kind of a fancy version of washing, in a way.
It's the first wash. It's the first wash.
And it's, if I hadn't laid it out, I'm not sure what would have happened. It might have stretched more. It might have, who knows what would have happened if I had washed it without taking into consideration that you can manipulate it a little bit the first time you wash something. Again, I just soaked it in water. I didn't use any fancy soap or anything. The other thing is, I will always say about blocking, I always caution people, you can block things bigger. You cannot block things smaller unless you want to felt things and actually agitate and shrink. And that only works if it's not superwash. But if your gauge is too big, if your stitches are too big for a project, blocking will not fix that.
And it depends on the fiber content too, because you can, do a little felting with wool and, see how it shrinks down. It'll either shrink down a little bit or a lot. So it's not an exact. But if it's cotton or a plant fiber or silks, it won't change.
That's another thing but again, regardless of plant fiber, it blocking is not a fix if it's too big.
Yes.
Felting for wools could be. Heavy on the could. But yeah, you got to fix that before you start if something might come out too big.
Felting is the alchemy of knitting.
Yeah, which means it doesn't always go well. And sometimes
it blows up in your face.
Yeah, sometimes you're trying to change silver, like you're trying to change tin to gold. It doesn't change. So, yeah. Or it changes into something that's even less precious. So, okay. So I just had to show this off. I think I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, there might have been things I liked about it pre-blocking, but it's more comfortable right now. Regardless of if it looks better or not, it is more comfortable right now post-blocking. And I'll probably get just as overheated as I was in this. So, all right. So we had some questions that they weren't necessarily... They were sent to you.
They were sent to me.
Necessarily addressed as Dear Becky and Lizzy, but we thought we would try to answer them.
We have a sock question and the Ladderback Jacquard question.
Okay.
I will start with the Ladderback Jacquard question. Hey Liz, you mentioned LJ on the last video. Would Rebecca mind showing the back of her sweater and describing the technique?
What is this doing? Oh, no, I know what this is doing here. Sorry.
Has she ever done a tutorial on it? I've seen others and I'm so confused. Thanks, love your show and your interactions.
Okay, so let's preface this with, no, I have not made a ladderback, whether it's Jacquard or Jacquard, and like people say it all different ways, and some of those might be right and some of those might be wrong, and I might not say it the same way, so I'm just prefacing that.
No worries.
I don't know what's right.
Potato.
Right? Tomato. I feel like my grandmother, tomato. So I have not made a video. The woman who wrote the pattern that's on the cover of Pom Pom, the Polyrhythm, made what I think is a very good video. I will admit, and I haven't wanted to like steal her thunder and take views away from her video. I will say though that her video was written for someone who holds their yarn continental style in this hand, and I hold my yarn in this hand. So there might be an audience for me to do one trying to explain what she's already done. I will probably preface the video when I make it by saying, like, I think it's Johanna Kunin. I think she's already got one. That's fantastic. And I'm just making it in case holding a yarn in a different hand. Like, I do it a little, I don't do it differently. But because I hold my yarn in my right hand, some of it does feel different. I could see then a video where they're doing it continental style. So, I do still have this sweater here. It's been hanging out back behind the shop, behind the counter, because I haven't worked on it since the one time in February I worked on it. But I'm excited that it's getting closer, right, to being done. So Ladderback, I say Ladderback Jacquard, which is just all flat sounding. It's probably coming from up north. It is a way to lock your floats without twisting the yarns like in the fabric, so it kind of shows. It's like when you have a really long block of color, and this one does. This one, the longest ones are like 12 stitches. With traditional stranded color work, I tend to recommend locking your floats. Like the one color floats behind the other. The strand does. And I usually recommend locking those down about every, like, say, not letting it go more than, say, 5 stitches.
Yeah.
Is what I tend to recommend. Because it can pull those multiple stitches super tight, yanking it behind the other one if you're not careful while you're knitting. Sometimes even if you are careful, it leaves a really long float that can get snagged. I've got sweaters where I have snagged the hoozy out of things. But some of those gauges have been loose enough that I'm not even sure if the Ladderback Jacquard technique would work with that. But this sweater has a chart that even has lines drawn in for where to put those. And I didn't know what those were when I first started the sweater. And the person who wrote this pattern, when I posted my little gauge swatch and how, this is going to look yucky because locking your float, sometimes it peeks through despite best intentions, or it jig jogs a stitch or something. And she commented and said, well, have you seen my video? And then I looked back at the pattern and went, oh, that's what those lines and things are for. There's advice in the pattern to do this. So anyway, long lead up
Reading the pattern actually helps.
What? Reading the pattern? So the spots in here especially, this is a really good spot to look at. This is like 12 stitches across. And up here, I don't have to worry. But down here, so you want to see the back. This is what the back looks like. These are the stitches. And the cool thing is they are linked. It's a stitch that kind of helps keep this flat. And it is completely separate from the front of the fabric. But it's not something that's going to get easily snagged. So I'll show you on the front side here. When you're doing it, and I don't know if I think in the section I'm in right now, I don't have all of those sections. Like here's one where I didn't really do it quite right, and you can kind of see the floats popping through. All those really long sections in the part that I'm on are a checkerboard, so I don't have it right up at the front. But here's one where that's my Ladderback Jacquard of the white being locked behind the blue, and right now it looks like that's gonna show, but it won't, because I will knit it together with another stitch when that part is done. So I'll have this on the back, and you won't have this on the front. You actually make an extra stitch where you want the tack down to be, and it provides a place where your float then gets like a twisted purl stitch, which on the back looks like a twisted knit stitch, but it's a twisted purl stitch when you're knitting it. And it gives more structure to the float. Like it's not actually attached to the other color.
No, it keeps the floats locked together behind the fabric.
Yeah, so they're not, so like this section I was showing before. This section right in here, where on the other side, like it's, and that's the one I didn't lock right on one time. Let me show you this one right here. So we've got a block of white and a block of blue, and on the back side we have the floats of blue and the floats of white, and yeah, they're locked. That's a good way of describing it. They're locked to each other. So instead of having, like, it's an 8-row block, instead of having these 8 strands just kind of all loosely floating across 12 stitches, they are linked to each other, creating like a grid back behind there. But it's still only 12 stitches on the front. This was a 13th and 14th stitch when I was doing it, but it was only being done by the other color, and then it gets hidden. And you pull the color you're working with in front of it. That the one spot where, like, I look at this, I think it's this one here, and I see, like, there's funkiness in here. It's when you go to do the purl stitch, you pull both colors to the front, and you do your purl stitch with the back color. And then you take both stitches around the back. So the white in here is pulled in front of the blue. You do the blue, and then it's pulled back behind, so it hides the blue to the back. And there was one time when I didn't do that right. There is a little bit of making sure you're not twisting your yarns around each other. And I did that on one row, and then I noticed it two or three rows later, and I tried to fix it, and without ripping it out, it was unfixable. And I said, I'm moving on. There's too many stitches here to back out like 3 rows. And I'm going to try, like, every time I turn it around, I'm just like, I can see it. Like, I can see it right here. See, there is, this strand has a white wrapped around it, and it shouldn't, to have this technique really be the invisible technique it wants to be. So, I have thought often about making a video. I like doing whiteboards for my videos. And this is one that I've done a handful without that, because some of the drawings would be too complicated or take too long. Or I have to do a whole lot of drawings. And this is one that I probably would not do drawings for, because there's a lot of steps to it. And it's going to be a long enough video as is. And again, I want to pay homage to Johanna, who taught me how to do it through a video. So, but she did it holding the yarns over here and having to pull them forward and pull them back. I am a fan of two-handed stranded color work. I don't do that with this, because I keep having to pull the yarn forward and do things and put the yarn to the back, and having yarns in 2 different hands means one of them's got to come around and do this and then go back and then spread out. And so I find when I'm doing this, like her video, both the strands were in this hand.
I want to say, watching her video, because I was like, hey, how do I do this? And you sent me her video link. Watching that, I was able to figure out how to hold 2 strands on one hand.
And you knit continental style.
And I knit continental.
Yeah.
But before that, I was two-handing.
Yeah. And continental, yeah, there is kind of a way, which is fun, to maybe spread. I mean, there's many different ways. There is a way to like spread your yarn out so they're in different places on your finger. When I do things English style, I don't do that because the angle's different. It's just like continental, you can pick at things, and so you can kind of do that, right? English style, so I hold both strands over here when I am doing this project. If you look on Morning Meditations on Instagram, you can see this, or Facebook. And I do the flipping this way and that way, like to always making sure my white's going over the top and my black is going underneath, or navy for this. But then I can bring both yarns to the front and do my little backwards purl and bring both yarns to the back. Like, having them on the same side, be it continental or English, I think is very helpful to figure out, to make this work, this technique work. If you are someone who likes to hold the yarn like this, which I do when I'm not doing this technique, you may want to consider shifting to both in one hand, or both in right or both in left when doing this technique. That is one thing I can say here, because the technique's too complicated to really show you the way we film this setup. My tips and tricks, making a video on tips and tricks has several factors that need to align for that to work. I need to have the energy, which involves, actually that's the big one. I need to have the time and energy, and that is often very dependent on what's going on with the shop and how busy we are and what events are coming up and that kind of thing. And it's been a struggle to find the time to do that. So it's on my list. I haven't forgotten about it.
We can link Joanna's.
Yeah, we can put Johanna's in the description of this video. Again, with the preface that she does it with continental. holding of yarn, tension of yarn. Yarn is in her left hand. And that's either going to be awesome for continental people or also awesome for English style knitters who can wrap their brains around what's happening, which is very possible. So until I can get a video done for the English knitters, check out Johanna's, and we'll put that in the she has a tag name and I'm forgetting it right now. It's Soft Power Knits. It just came to me, I think. Soft Power Knits is a way to look it up. So if you look up Ladderback Jacquard, the video I used was by Soft Power Knits. So my brain's catching up to my mouth. All right. So what's next?
Hi Liz, can you recommend a sock yarn, maybe a cotton or a bamboo blend, that is not fuzzy and would be good for summer? You have the Regia cotton, not many available. Is that a good one? Trying to get away from wool, but I'm not sure where or there are any good plant-based yarns for socks. I've been to your shop once trying to find housing in Brevard area. I'm in Missouri. Thanks
We would love
for
you
this
to...
sideshow.
Sorry, didn't realize it wasn't done.
I'm done.
Okay. It is hard to find housing just about everywhere, so we hope you do find it. So, yay, come move near us. I am not an expert on non-wool sock yarns. I'm just going to say that straight up front. Anything else we say is not from the point of view of an expert who knows what they're talking about. That's a tough one, especially the not fuzzy thing, because that any description of yarn, soft, fuzzy, scratchy, things like that, that is so much like dependent on the person. So I might say, I don't think this yarn is very fuzzy, and someone else would say, yeah, I see fuzz all over that. Or I think this yarn is really soft. I think Noro is decently soft, and someone else is like, oh my gosh, that is the roughest thing I've ever touched. So we could say, yeah, this yarn isn't fuzzy, and then you will knit with it and say, it's so fuzzy. And it's because we have different perceptions of what we mean when we say fuzzy, or pills or doesn't pill.
Scratchy.
Or
we had a
especially
discussion
scratchy.
about that
Especially
yesterday.
scratchy. Yeah.
Like, it's superwash merino. It's so soft, depending on where you're wearing it.
Mm-hmm. I've had things that are supposed to be soft still scratch me, and I don't know if it's because it, like, maybe I'm slightly allergic to alpaca and I don't want to admit it, or you know,
alpaca can have guard hairs that are, you know.
Yeah. So, I don't consider cotton to be super fuzzy on the whole. Usually that's why people like knitting with it as opposed to wool, because wool has more of a fuzzy, hot feeling against your skin, which in some seasons is a good thing, you know. So cotton doesn't necessarily strike me as a fuzzy thing, yet the Cumulus rainbow, or the Cumulus, can get super fuzzy because it's such a soft cotton. So
kind of all depends on how it's processed to become yarn. Mm-hmm. Because like the Cumulus rainbow, they let all the little wispies wispy, and a lot of cotton yarns like lay everything flat and then twist it tight.
And then it's heavy.
Yeah.
And then, or dense. And that cotton doesn't have the fuzziness of wool, makes it good for a feeling against your skin or your feet for summer temperatures. But the process of making it such sometimes is not necessarily coarse, but it's heavy enough, it's dense enough, rigid enough. It may not be as comfortable on your feet, or it could still end up being hot. Because it breathes, but it doesn't. It's weird.
Well, and
you know,
when we look at, if you look at machine-made socks, like if you go to the store and buy a pair of cotton machine socks,
and I've never done that, so I don't have cotton socks.
The thread is thinner.
It's way thinner.
Way thinner than fingering weight.
The few things we're about to show off. The other thing is, like, sometimes even though wool is fuzzy, and well, I mean, if you think about like hiking socks and athletic socks, for wicking away the sweat from your feet, wool is a lot better at that.
And they also cut down on odors.
Yes. Wool. So cotton, I was thinking that too. So cotton could be like, it's a summery fabric, and then your feet are smelly. So but what I've noticed about a lot of athletic socks that do use the wool, it's not as fuzzy though because it's so finely spun, and that's only done on a machine.
Yeah.
So there's like this could be another example of, and someone else who actually knits cotton socks could speak to this so much better than us, but in my head, it's like theoretical physics, right? It's like theoretical sock knitting. In my head, like, there are all these reasons why the thing this person is looking for may not exist. Or we could try to make some recommendations, but they're not going to hit all, it's unicorn socks. It's not going to hit all the things they're looking for. Like, not fuzzy, and does this, and does that, and is great for summer, and is...
Well, and the content, like the Regia sock, it's cotton and elastic. It's not nylon. It's an elastic thread.
And we've had people come into the shop and we're like, well, this is what we have for socks. And they're just like, ew. Because of the nylon or the elastic or both, you know.
So there's that. I tend to stay away from bamboo because even though everybody's like, it's natural fiber, it goes through the rayon process.
It's not as easy to make that into a yarn as, say, cotton or something else. It's and
I stay away from it because my body is like, it's synthetic. And
it's
my
a natural
feet would
fiber
sweat
that
and sweat.
It's a natural fiber that is synthetically made into yarn, and so it's not completely artificial like acrylic.
Rayon they call a natural synthetic because you take natural stuff and there's chemicals to turn it into yarn. It's not completely synthetic, but yeah.
And the reason we don't have much of this is, I can feel the difference between these two, but the reason we don't have much of this, we don't work with this supplier anymore. So what we have is what we have. And I am currently making a pair of socks out of this, and I haven't finished. So I haven't tested to know if they'll be good summer socks or not. They're just cute.
We've had people use the bamboo pop, not the bamboo pop sock.
No, which is I have here, but we don't have in the shop for sale. It's half bamboo and half cotton, and the label says it's a DK, but it is a thin sport weight, in my opinion. So it's as close to the thickness of sock yarn as we can get with a plant fiber, apart from our Wasco cotton, which I wouldn't recommend for socks.
It doesn't have any.
But neither does this.
Yeah.
The any is it doesn't have any nylon in it for added structure. It's just cotton, and in my opinion, I mean, it's kind of soft, but not that soft. So
we haven't heard back from them.
Yeah, the people who've bought, because it's some people who are allergic to wool, and that's a big reason why you wouldn't make socks out of wool. And this guy is the one thing we've been able to say, hey, if you want to try something in our shop, try this. We haven't, like Liz is saying, we have not heard back, good or bad. That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. We have a knitter who might be experimenting with this right now. So the bamboo pop sock. This is not available for sale in our shop. We would love to experiment and see if it's worth bringing into the shop, but we do not currently have it in the shop. It looks a lot like this guy in terms of, like, they both look like they've got something else kind of strung in there. The bamboo pop sock is 55% bamboo, 37% cotton. So it's a lot more bamboo. Bamboo pop straight up is 50-50. Bamboo pop sock is 55 bamboo, 37 cotton, and 8% PBT. Whatever the heck that is what they're using for their elastic, nylon, whatever. It's got an abbreviation. I don't know what it stands for. Someone who's watching might know. We might be able to look it up later. But it is the extra strand that gives this a little bit of stretchiness to it. It feels softer than the Regia. I don't know. With all of these, I don't know how well the cotton will wear or hold up to actually being socks. You have to think that since Universal Yarn labeled this as a sock yarn, they have done some amount of testing. But who knows? Who knows? Someday, I don't know if it's going to be anytime soon, I might experiment with this and report back to y'all. But I have so many projects on needles, and I've just started more.
I'd say I would, but nobody wants double-stranded cotton socks on a bigger needle.
I don't know if that would be an effective test for people who are not going to double-strand.
That's why I'm like, I would, but
she's not going to use needles that are small enough to actually make socks single-stranded. So, yeah, but this is supposed to, do a stripey thing, and anyway. There's 492 yards on this, though. So it's super teeny tiny, especially because it's plant fiber. It's generous yardage. It's thinner than this stuff.
Yeah, because the Regia is 459.
Well, I can tell this is thinner than that by feeling it and looking at it.
Yeah.
And you can tell there's more bamboo, because bamboo is softer than cotton. Softer doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hold up better. In fact, often softer goes hand in hand with will pill or will fuzz or will wear out faster. So that's the magic thing is the person who's writing this question wants something that's not going to be fuzzy. And sometimes when it's not fuzzy, it's because it's spun tighter, and that means it's not as comfortable. So it's which thing is going to annoy you more, fuzziness or uncomfortable, or slightly less comfortable than something that might end up being fuzzy. I don't know. So, long story long to say, we don't really know. And I haven't explored enough of, like, if someone asks questions about a good yarn for X, Y, or Z, we will always approach that from, first off, is there a good yarn in our shop we can recommend? Because at the end of the day, we are a retail business. And then second off, do we know of anything outside of our shop which we may have very limited experience with? Like, I know a little bit about Malabrigo because we don't carry it. And I might kind of off to the side say something about it, but I'm going to keep my focus on what we have in the shop, which is not everything that is out there. There's so many cool yarns out there that we don't have space for in the shop. But, and it's not like we're not going to talk about them, because it's like, well, this would be great, but it's not in our shop, so it doesn't exist. But
and as always,
we're going to stay focused.
There are unicorn yarns that really don't exist.
Yeah, there's that too.
Anywhere. So, it's that the Venn diagram, like,
what is the overlap?
What is the overlap?
Right.
Yeah,
there's
like,
so many
the perfect color, the perfect feel, the perfect washability, the perfect.
I could draw like 6 different Venn diagrams of things that people come in the shop asking or write to us asking about, and and sometimes there's something in the middle, and sometimes it's a big black hole. So, to bring it back to theoretical physics and everything else. So, was that it?
That's all
for this week.
Yeah.
Okay, and we do have to open up the shop relatively soon. I will try to report back on Tuesday to how the bottom of this fares, if I feel more comfortable in it overall since it's been blocked. I feel like I can breathe a little better in it, but we'll see if that, the form is as flattering. I had someone say last week that this looked like, I think I've already said this on camera, but whatever, that it looked like a store-bought sweater. And for some people, that's the gold standard. And for some people, I'm like, yay, but no, but I don't know. Sometimes I want someone to know I made it. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's got errors in it or it looks handmade. I don't know. Anyway, we have to go. Again, Bud is going to be on sale for another week, and we will see what we want to talk about next week. Since the yarns I wanted to talk about, our stock is weird. Stock is weird on everything.
Tune in next week.
Dun, dun, dun. It's not that much of a cliffhanger.
Find out if Liz ever finished her green sleeves.
No. You should just wear it on the needles.
I started a new project, but
You did. We'll talk about that on Tuesday. We'll see where you got to it on Tuesday. All right, we have virtual sit and stitch tomorrow night, Friday night, from 7 to 9 p.m. You can get into Zoom with the shop phone number,
828-877-3550.
And other events are more than a week away, so we won't talk about them now. So
don't forget to change your clocks on Saturday night. We're springing
the clocks
forward.
That aren't controlled by your phone and your computer and things like that. We're losing an hour of sleep. My car clock will finally be right. I'll have to remember that it's right instead of changing it by an hour. That'll be fun. So we'll see y'all next week. And so next Tuesday, Sit and Stitch will be at a different time if you don't observe daylight savings in any shape or form. But anyway.
Don't observe it at the same time we do.
Exactly. That's what I meant. All right, we have to go. We'll talk to you later. Bye.